Greetings, all you interesting and interested people. Today's guest, as always, I have to say, we do know how to pick them here. Another sharp, insightful brain, a man who's, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me describing him as a disruptor. He definitely understands his home country of America, and he's not afraid to shoot from the hip, so to speak, when discussing the issues of the day. So another fascinating conversation beckons. Before we get into it, though, a quick reminder to check out my patreon.com site. By signing up there, parting with a little bit of cash, about the equivalent of a cup of coffee every month, you get to meaningfully support the channel. You also get early access to all my new content and exclusive access to some stuff, including a question and answer session that I particularly enjoy every week. It's great. Join, stir yourself into the mix, and thereby make it even better. Okay, now it's time for that promised chat. Hi everyone, fellow travellers. Time for another inspiring, informative conversation with somebody well worth listening to. Today's guest is absolutely worth listening to. Glenn Beck, US broadcaster of decades standing, usually badged as a conservative, but as far as I'm concerned, what's not to like about being conservative with a small c? It's only about identifying that which is worth keeping, that which is passing on into the future, and spending as much effort as necessary to conserve it in that way. So we should all be conservative as far as I'm concerned. So without any more ado, welcome, Glenn Beck.
How are you? Good to see you.
I am all the better for seeing your face.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I feel like in some way we're kindred spirits or brothers, kind of in a way, because we're so much. I think we're so much alike in many ways.
I know. I find it reassuring because I know that you've been deeply, profoundly troubled by so much that's been happening in recent years, and just knowing that is a burden halved, that burden shared.
I know. I know.
If just to kick it off, Glenn, if you were a doctor and the United States of America was your patient, how would you rate her chances of survival as of today?
So I have, unfortunately, an uncle who is in the hospital now, and he's riddled with cancer, and he probably only has 2 days to live.
I'm sorry, Glenn.
And no, that's all right. And so I've been, we've been kind of in this world, and I would say, kind of what they said. I think you have to give it a little more time. I think he's. Let's just keep an eye on it. And we'll see the signs one way or another. I wouldn't count America out, but if you're a praying person, I would be on my knees praying for America, because as we go, unfortunately, I think the West will go. But we're really close. I mean, there's so many things. There's so many layers to this. Neil, there's, I was just with the president over the weekend, President Trump, and I talked to him again yesterday. And, when I flew in, I was doing a rally with him, and I flew in, and his plane was landing right after mine. And to get permission to land at that airport took us about a day and a half, and it had to go through Washington. It was on the other side of the country. Had to go through Washington, had to be cleared. They had stopped everything in like 100-mile radius. And our plane parked, and they came to the door of the plane. They're like, got to get off the tarmac. His plane's about to. And so we got off the tarmac, and his plane, they had parked all of these gigantic like dump trucks, the big like, that you're scooping boulders into. And they had parked them nose to nose all the way around where his plane was going to be. We then traveled about 15 minutes, and every exit every street corner on every single block for the entire 15-minute drive. There was at least one police car. I've never seen a show of force like this. When he arrived at the arena, I was in the dressing room next to his, and the Secret Service came in and said, "Mr. Beck, do you mind? We're just going to close your door for a second. The president's going to be coming through." And I said, "Sure." And when they knocked and said, it's clear now, you can come on out if you want. And when I poked my head out the door, they were full military gear with their ARs at the ready. They were all standing in the hallway like this. I've never seen security like this. He just asked for security on his plane because it's going around now that, Iran has made a threat against his life. And Biden is taking it very seriously, and he's asked for military escorts, something that can stop a shoulder fire missile. Because the rumor is, or the belief is that something's been smuggled across our border and they're going to take his plane out before the election. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
It has felt to me for a while as though Britain, my homeland, is being deliberately dismantled. I've referred to it as a controlled demolition.
Yeah, same here.
The
entire West is, Neil. The entire West is. It's clear. We're all having the same problem, and we're all being told by our media that's a conspiracy theory, or you're a bigot for this, or you're, a bad person because of that. They will shut us down from asking questions. Wait, we never asked for our towns to be overrun with migrants. We never approved the money to pay for I don't know about what they're doing in London and in Great Britain, but here we're putting them up in like really nice hotels. And it's costing us billions of dollars. And the crime on our streets, it's horrible. Why is it this is happening in every Western country? Why? Who decided? There are more refugees than there were in World War II. What is happening? Because they're not talking to us about any of their plans.
Here you could possibly tell, the lights are on in my room here, but in Scotland, the autumn is moving inexorably towards winter. And along with that natural darkness that comes, there is a feeling of an other darkness descending, that it's palpable. I have spent the longest time holding at bay, as though it were a conspiracy theorist, this idea that we're being taken down. But it does become harder and harder to deny what feels like it's happening.
It absolutely is, Neil. It absolutely is. And that's honestly why I believe every Western leader and every media outlet is so hell-bent on destroying Donald Trump. This guy has been investigated by the Five Eyes. He's been investigated by every intelligence agency on the planet. And really, the best you can come up with is, what are they charging him with? One of them was just thrown out, a $400 million fine for business. And the Supreme Court of New York just overturned it and said, this is ridiculous. This has never been tried in America before. And really went off after the Attorney General of the state of New York. They're stopping him because he won't play the game. I just talked to him yesterday, and we were talking about, we have Joe Biden, who's our president. He is completely incapable of being president of the United States. We have Kamala Harris, who is absolutely a joke. And she's not at the White House right now. She's traveling around campaigning. And we're reading that our nuclear strategy against Russia and China is being changed. And I asked the president, who is changing it? Who? Because we know it's not Joe Biden, and he's the president, and only the president can change that. So who is authorizing this? Who is coming up with this? He said something frightening. I've never heard him say this. He said, Glenn, I really believe it's a group of people. I don't know who they are. And he said, I don't know if they even know who they are, but it is in the government, and they are plotting and moving the chess pieces to fundamentally transform the United States of America, as Barack Obama would say.
From this side of the Atlantic, it's very difficult, impossible to gauge the presidential race. We hear that somebody's out in front, that person, that name changes, flickers before your eyes. Sometimes we hear it's neck and neck, that it's going to come down to a few hundred votes here, a few hundred votes there. How do you read the reality of that situation? Indeed, how does President Trump read the reality of that situation?
So it's funny because he leaned over to me. He was going through the internal numbers, and then he, as he spoke very optimistically from the internal numbers, if they're correct, and then he leaned over to me as other people were talking. He's like, "What's your gut tell you?" And that's kind of the way everybody is right now. What's your gut tell you? Because Trump runs anywhere from 10 to 6 points behind the polls. So, or ahead of the polls. He has gained in 2016, he gained an extra 10 points than what they had him polling at. In 2020, he had an extra 8 points than or 6 points of what he was polling as. And so you never really know because of that, but he's in the best position he's ever been in on the poll numbers. It is within a couple of points, but the surge is happening for him right now. Kamala Harris, I've never seen anything like this, Neil. It's honestly, we're living in 1984 in America. What's happening? They're telling us now to deny our eyes, to deny our ears, and to deny our memories. All of a sudden, within 3 or 4 days of her being selected, not voted for, she came in last in the presidential primary. All of a sudden, just the elites of the party just said, she's it. And when that happened, within 3 days, her Wikipedia page changed. Stuff had been deleted from the internet. The White House, website had been changed, where she was deeply unpopular. She was more unpopular than Joe Biden. And that's saying something. She was more unpopular there. And then all of a sudden, the media just said, no, she's a superstar. Everything you think about her is wrong, where they were denying things that we all know were absolutely true. We saw it with our own eyes. And the media was telling us these things 2 weeks before. They were like, she can't be the president because she's really disliked. She can't keep her staff. Nobody likes her in Washington. And then you're like, wait, you just told us this 2 weeks ago, and now you're saying the opposite. So there's a couple of things. I'm sorry for being such a long answer on your question.
No.
But so here's how you should read the presidential politics. We don't have paper ballots like you do. We have a system that since 2000, the Democrats have been saying was rigged. The Republicans said it for the first time in 2020, and all of a sudden it was the worst sin you could possibly imagine. But it is rigged, and it just depends on who's playing the game the best. So nobody really trusts the final tally, which is going to be a problem. Donald Trump is slightly ahead in the polls, but if he polls, let's say, this time he was at 10 points, the last time he was 6 points ahead. Maybe this time he's 4 points ahead. He wins, and he wins handily. His feeling is there might be a sweep. I hate to say that out loud because I don't want to jinx it, but that is a possibility. And in America, everybody says, I think he's going to win, but for cheating. So we don't know how many points they can put on. Joe Biden signed an executive order, which means the president just says so, and so he can order all of government to do something. It's crazy. It's really abused right now, has been for about 20 years. But he did an all of government registration drive for voters. That means our Department of Interior, our Department of Treasury, our FBI, our Farm and Agriculture Department, all of them made a central goal to get people registered over the last 4 years to vote. They farmed that out to extreme far left organizations, NGOs. And they will not. Congress has asked them over and over again, produce the documents. We need to see what they did, and they would not share it. So we're in the dark. We don't know what they've done.
What then, given all of that uncertainty, what are the chances of whatever happens on the special day in November, whatever happens, it being believed? How can result, whatever the result is, be trusted?
So we are praying for a landslide. So if it's close, neither side will believe it. If it's an 8-point victory, 4-point victory, then it's believable. But it's going to take something like that. I'm hoping one side or the other wins in a landslide. But there's no momentum behind Kamala Harris right now. But here are the things you need to watch for as somebody overseas. America is in real trouble, and she may survive. I would say she wouldn't, but I'm holding out that maybe we haven't discredited ourselves so much with God that He'll give us another chance, more time at least. First, you have to watch for an assassination before the election. That is seemingly a very real possibility. That will tear America absolutely apart. And it will put us on war footing because it will be blamed it very well might be, but it'll immediately be pinned to Iran. And with Iran and Russia and everything else, it'll just put us, I think it'll put the whole world into chaos. We hope that doesn't happen, but that's the first thing to watch for. Next thing to watch for is if Kamala Harris wins in a landslide, it will be pretty quiet. If Donald Trump wins in a landslide, they will start immediate proceedings to say that he is a insurrectionist, and according to the 14th Amendment of our Constitution, which was for the Civil War, an insurrectionist cannot take federal office. And they've already drawn up the papers. If he wins, they're going to go that way. If it's close, they're not only going to do that, but also are going to try to put him in jail. And the other is the streets will be on fire. The left will rise up and set the country on fire.
And yet you think that, or you say that if Kamala Harris wins, that the response would be docile.
Yeah, if it's a landslide for her, the right, I believe the right will begrudgingly accept it. There will be some people who are like, this was stolen. But if you get 8 points, it's too hard to believe that they could fake 8 points.
What then for America? Because life has to go. Life has to go on. Day must follow night in succession. What then for America? because it feels, looking at it, the way things are going for the last 4 years, where the Harris team continue to campaign as though they are competing with a sitting president in the form of Trump. You'd be forgiven for thinking that it was President Trump now, and that Kamala Harris is running against him. But
Yeah.
it feels as though America would enter, or Americans would enter, a new dark age. So what then? What then for Americans?
Neil, I've been talking about this coming to America for 20, 25 years. And I've been very clear with the audience. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I said, this is the way it's going to happen, is now happening and has happened. But I don't know what happens beyond this point. I really don't. It really depends on who wins. If Donald Trump wins, he will reduce the size of our government, so it can't be as out of control as it is right now. And that's going to be hard. But I think he can keep the calm. If it's Kamala Harris, they're going to gut the people. They already are. They're impoverishing people. She's got a new $5 trillion tax plan that she wants to pass. $5 trillion. People in America are already struggling. We just had this hurricane. The government came 7 days after the hurricane. 7 days after, we had my charity. We had $10 million worth of food on the ground within 3 days. We had, I think it was 50 helicopters and a makeshift airport that our team had put together. We were rescuing people off of mountaintops that were trapped. And they roll in 7 days later and say, if you lost your house, just fill out this form and you'll get $750. Well, that's not going to cover the cost of a hotel room at the price of hotel rooms that were all around there. You had to drive, to another state. As Donald Trump said on the air with me yesterday, he said, it's a vicious government. It's not just the government. It's a vicious side of the government. And like you said about, Great Britain, it seems like they're dismantling. They are dismantling, and they're impoverishing the people.
We've got a Labour government in now under Keir Starmer, and they're doing things like they've taken away the cold weather supplement, which is a meagre amount of money anyway. But for a lot of pensioners, millions of pensioners, it made the difference between choosing between eating and heating. They're promising a brutal budget. They're promising tax hikes and all of the rest of it. So that you've got notionally the party of the people, the Labour Party, weaponizing itself in every way against the people, treating the people with contempt and cruelty. That's
our Democratic Party now.
I mean, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been saying, the party of his uncle and father,
yes,
which was the party of freedom of speech, it was the party of peace, it was anti-war, it was the party of the little guy against big business, and now the Democratic Party has flipped 180 degrees. It's the party of big business, it's the party of censorship, it's the party of war. The so-called left on both sides of the Atlantic is at war with its populations.
I contend, the entire Western world is at war with their populations. And they teach each of us that it is the opposing party in our system. And I don't think the opposing parties per se are all that against what they're doing. I mean, they're just doing it at a slower speed. And it's not, it isn't the two-party system or the, however many parties everybody has. It's not that. It is the elite class versus the average person. And the elite class has decided they're redesigning the world, and they're redesigning it in a way that it's beneficial to them. And it's almost as if they don't care at all about the people. Honestly, here in America, there are times where you feel like, I think the government despises me. If I'm not part of that elite class, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't, we've been saying for the longest time here, that it's a two-party system to all intents and purposes. And it's been being described here for the longest time as two cheeks of the same arse. As in it doesn't.
That's going to be an American phrase. I'm stealing that from you.
It doesn't matter which one you pick or which one you slap. It's all one. It's all one thing. And clearly, it's become an elite parasitic, philanthropathic, whatever neologism portmanteau word you want to use to describe these sinister characters. But it's a tiny them and a massive us. And for reasons that I cannot compute, the massive us is docile and accepting in the face of it, which brings me on to your book. I mean, I want to get into your book about the massive issue of propaganda, which opens the door into a whole world of brainwashing and mind control and manipulation. But why are people still, as it were, got their guns holstered in the home of the brave?
There's a couple of things. One, we've never had wars here. I mean, civil war. That was the last war. We're an ocean away from problems. And it can't happen here in America. Everybody thinks that can't happen. So they bought into that's a conspiracy theory for a very long time. They don't anymore. They're awake. The media has completely discredited itself. And now, at the same time they were just saying that's a conspiracy theory, they added more teeth as they went along. And if you decided to stand up, they'd hit you in the head until you sat down. And people became trained with that, especially during COVID, and they were afraid to stand up. And, our declaration says, the populace will, I'm badly paraphrasing here, but the populace will accept a long train of abuses until those abuses are absolutely intolerable, because human nature doesn't want to shake off a system that they know. It's better to be uncomfortable than to go to civil war. It's better to be uncomfortable than cause problem. I just want to feed my family and do my job, and you know what I mean? But we're now passing that station, at least here in America. And it's amazing because the big cities are all in. The red states of America, they're not even close to it. They're not even close to it. It's two different worlds.
I was listening to, I've spent a lot of time listening over the years, actually, when Robert Kennedy Jr. has spoken about food and health, the health of America. And more recently, I've been listening to, the brother and sister team, Casey and Callie Means, who've come to the fore, addressing the whole toxic food issue. Now, I heard Robert Kennedy recently equating the way in which the indigenous population of America, and even the poorest of the African American population, the way in which they're being fed with food stamps and so on via food stamps. He's actually invoked the word genocide in terms of and I mean, I think how long does what signposts does a mass of a population have to be herded past, including one that says genocide of a chunk of you, before that camel's back is broken?
I think we're really close to approaching it. America's waking up in a way I've never seen before. When you talked about pharmaceutical companies, a lot of people would go, yeah, but they do a lot of good. A lot of people are alive, blah, 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 blah. Now, after COVID, they have a really bad name. And you're like, I don't trust these pharmaceutical companies at all. When you look at food and you see how unhealthy we are, America's just beginning to wake up to that, because the pharmaceuticals, some of the extras that are produced by the pharmaceuticals, they find their way into our foods. And who owns the big food corporations of America? Tobacco. Big tobacco. The people who didn't tell anybody, oh, you're getting cancer and these are very addictive. When they started losing their share, companies like R.J. Reynolds came in and took buttloads of money and they bought the food industry. So it's the same people that were killing us with tobacco that are now producing our foods. That they don't really care. They didn't care with tobacco. They don't really care now. And we're just starting to wake up. I tell you, if America had another year of stability, you would see a very different country. You will see people standing up. Now, I am truly afraid, because this election is going to decide a lot. Freedom of speech is going away in America. And when people really realize that this is happening, God help us, in a country that has, 350 million guns. The president says, President Biden says, you're going to need an F-16 or, an F-22 if you want to fight America. Really? Because I know some people that lived in caves and they kept you tied up for quite some time. This is
sorry to laugh, but yeah,
I know it's going to be ugly. I pray that doesn't happen. I pray that somehow or another everybody stays peaceful.
I know. I worry that the analogy that's well worn now about the swinging pendulum, and the pendulum has swung so far, and it's still moving in that direction.
It's actually in America, I think it's starting to swing back.
And you've got to. I would be worried, because that pendulum is going to swing at least as far in the other direction.
Right.
And you think that can take you to another very scary place.
Oh, I know. I'm currently afraid of somebody reaching out and just grabbing it and saying it's not moving, by taking away the rights and the constitutional rights. I mean, they're talking now about going from a Supreme Court of 9 to 15. That was rejected during FDR when he tried to do it, because he couldn't get things past the Supreme Court because of constitutional reasons. That is the last step a dictator takes. You change the Supreme Court of your country and you pack it, and that way you have complete control and you can do anything. If a massive event happens, they'll grab onto that pendulum, I fear. Or if they win, they'll grab onto the pendulum, and it will be here. I mean, when they start saying that you're spreading dis and mis and dangerous information that you should be jailed on because you say, I'm sorry, biologically, that is a female. She can call herself whatever she wants, and I have no problem. She can live her life. She wants to be a male, that's fine. But if I'm taking her to the hospital, I'm telling the doctor that's a female. And that puts me in jail. I don't want to be a part of this kind of country. That's never been that way in America. Never. And we are there.
You mentioned some minutes back about the media. And, you specifically the media in the United States of America, but, the media in the West, God knows, maybe the media all over is just what's gone.
Propaganda. It's state media.
And which brings me to your book, Propaganda. I saw a bit of the publicity for it. Every day, hundreds of millions of Americans are being lied to each time they use their phones, watch the news on television, browse social media, or utilize internet search engines. A highly sophisticated network of powerful institutions, activist groups, technology companies, and crony corporations manipulates their thoughts and feelings. And so it goes on. Where are we? I mean, what hope is there for anyone of accessing information that is to be trusted from anyone at any time in the future?
Well, we can still access you and people like you. But in America, I fear that's about to go away. And when it goes away in America, it goes away. Elon Musk is a great light in the darkness. They are doing everything they can to take that man down. He's readying a starship to go up and pick up the astronauts that were left on the space station. So that's happening in a couple of months. And they're trying to destroy him. California just said, we don't want any more of your rockets flying over California. Wait, what? This is progressivism? This is the guy, so you know, that agrees with you on global warming. He agrees with you on so much stuff on the left. He's not for Donald Trump as much as he's against what you guys are doing right now. He's trying to stop that, and he knows Donald Trump will do that. And he's absolutely a state criminal in their minds. And we are so close, Neil. We are so close to something that I have worried about for. I read a book by Ray Kurzweil in the 90s called The Age of Spiritual Machines. And we're here. The algorithms that they can now run on each of us, they know us better than we know ourselves. They can predict us better than we can predict what we would say at any given moment. They have insight to all of our mail, our entire friend circle. They know everything. We're at a point now where Google is manipulating the elections with ephemeral results. You can't track it. There is one guy that he is tracking it now. He's tracked it for the last two elections. He puts cameras on the computer and on the phone so he can track all these different Americans that vote completely differently. And when they search for something on Google, how does it come up? If you lean Trump, you're getting all negative Trump up until I think it was the third page was the last study. Well, nobody goes to the third page of Google. You don't get there. Everything was negative, and they can change the minds of people without them even knowing it, just by manipulating the results. And they're doing that, the search results. And that's baby stuff. Baby stuff.
So where, what conclusions did you draw then? You've spent the time putting together a book about propaganda in the broadest sense, the way in which information is being manipulated and so on and so on. Is there, in the short to medium term future, will there be places where people can think, I've read, seen, been told this, I know it to be true?
It will be up to the people. So here's the book. This first section is the problem, because I don't need to tell you everybody knows the problem. They may not know how bad it is, but you get it pretty quickly. This is the solution, and the solution is all about the individual. We can no longer be slugs that see something online and go, well, yeah, that's true, and just forward it and just expect. We have to guard our credibility. They've destroyed credibility of every corporation, every media outlet. They've destroyed the credibility of our doctors, of our politicians. Everything has been destroyed. Our judges. The only thing left is your credibility in your circle of friends. But it is becoming so hard to find out what's true and what is not.
Do you know what it makes me think of a lot of the time? In the movie Goodfellas, and the Paul Sorvino character won't even talk on the phone. he sends a lackey to make his phone calls for him because he's paranoid about being overheard and all of the rest of it. I understand that how that man got to that line of thinking, and I didn't used to.
Yeah.
But I feel that increasingly, I now have my world of trust, my circle of trust has come down to a handful of people. And when I speak directly to them, I choose to trust what they're telling me. I choose to believe that it's so. You're one of them, Glenn. We've sat face to face across a table in a pub and chewed the fat and I trust what you're telling me.
Right.
And that's what it's coming down to. It feels as though we're going to have to go analog for a while. We're going to have to come down to gathering in rooms together or on hillsides or whatever it takes, and knowing that really is the person and those really are the words that are coming out of their mouth, and I'm going to choose to believe them or not.
So have you ever heard The Gods of the Copybook Headings by Rudyard Kipling?
No.
May I read it to you?
Please do.
If I can find it real quick.
Yeah.
So you know the history of Rudyard Kipling in World War I and the Fabian Socialists, I'm assuming. He saw the Fabian Socialists that were really excited about World War I because we can change everything. We can get rid of all of these old kingdoms and we can redesign it, and it's not going to be bad, and it'll be wonderful. Well, he saw what was coming because it was a world of lies. And he knew that, no, there's a lot of things that I don't think you're paying attention to that you should. And so after the war, he spent the rest of his life visiting grave sites of soldiers that died in World War I, kind of his penance that he somehow or another couldn't, stop it. And then he wrote this poem, and it's called Gods of the Copybook Headings. And copybook headings, you know what they are, Neil?
Just tell me for the audience.
So the Gods of the Copybook Headings were copybooks when you learned how to write, and you would learn cursive. Up at the top, it would be printed a truth: water will wet, fire will burn, God is good. And then you would just copy that on that whole page. So he calls them the Gods of the Copybook Headings. So let me just find it. Because they are true. Okay. So they're gods. It is all the stuff that is true, and everyone knows it's true. So here's what he says. As I pass through my incarnations in every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the God of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall. And the gods of the copybook headings, I notice, outlast them all. Now listen to this. We were living in the trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water would certainly wet us and fire would certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, and breadth of mind. So we left them to teach the gorillas while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the spirit listed, but they never altered their pace, being neither cloud nor wind-born like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up to our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off its ice field or the lights had gone out in Rome. With the hope that our world is built on that they were utterly out of touch. After all, they denied the moon was Satan. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that pigs had wings. So we worship the God of the market, who promised us all of these beautiful things. When the Cambrian measures were forming, they promised us perpetual peace. They swore if we gave them our weapons, that the wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us and delivered us bound to our foe. And the gods of the copybook headings said, stick to the devil you know. On the first feminine sandstones, we were promised the fuller life, which started by loving our neighbor and ended by loving his wife. till our women had no more children and the men lost their reason and faith. And the gods of the copybook heading said, the wages of sin is death. There was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook heading said, if you do not work, you shall die. Then the gods of the market tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew, and the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and began to believe it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, and two do make four. And the gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only four things certain since social progress began: that the dog returns to his vomit, and the sow returns to her mire, and the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. And after all this is accomplished, and the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins, as surely as water will wet it, as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return. That's the warning to our generation from Rudyard Kipling. And I'm watching this happen in real time. We were, worshiping the gods of the market because they promised us that were all lies, and we accepted those lies.
I see something, Glenn. I've spoken. In fact, it's become something that I talk to everyone I talk to. I bring it up because so many people in the last 4 years have talked to me about faith, God, the truth, battle between good and evil, a contest between the light and the dark. People have been thrown back on the eternal verities. They've been pushed back until their backs are against the wall of truth.
That's the gods of the copybook headings.
And do you think that, where I would have been ready to be as cynical as the next cynic about all of that 5 years ago, but now I think that is where we have to go in order to push back meaningfully.
I think there is. It's funny because I thought of, should I talk to you about this or not? Because I don't know how Great Britain, feels about God and stuff. But here in America,
I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, here in America, it's been very bizarre. I don't think I have been with a Christian or a religious group in perhaps the last 2 years that someone hasn't said, I think we're living in biblical times. I think we are living in time. This is a tremendous evil, and there is going to be greater and greater good. And it almost feels like there's a force of evil that is orchestrating all of this stuff. And here in America, there is a great awakening. We're at the very, very beginning, but there is a reawakening, and it's the gods of the copybook headings. You cannot be this far removed from truth without your society, your families, everything just breaking down and breaking apart, because the cornerstone of a decent society is truth, and that's God. God is truth, and it's undeniable. And they first got us to deny the truth because we want to be nice. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And then we're like, you know what? I just want to be left alone. Yes. And people didn't see the problem of denying the truth. Now there's a good portion. There's probably half of our populations that still saying the lie, still repeating the lie, but they don't believe it. Very few actually believe it. Now they're starting to be scared, and they're like, I got to say this or I'll be destroyed. There is a rising courage that is happening all over the world where people know, you know what, guys? I can't deny this. I can't deny this. I believe in God, which means I believe in the truth.
I mean, you quoted Kipling there. I as many people do, I've gone back over and over W.B. Yeats' Second Coming, and I wonder about that. How it ends. That the darkness lowers again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony silence were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle, and some rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. And I think people talk about, we can see them. We know they're lying to us. We can see them. They're exposed as never before. Yeah. The rough beast is there. And it's slouching weird. Towards Bethlehem to be born. But we know, and it is a fight between good and evil laid bare.
It's really strange. I never understood in the scriptures where it said, in those days, the light won't understand the darkness and the darkness won't understand the light. How could good be turned to evil and evil be turned good with people not seeing that? And I don't know, Neil. I mean, I've never really had a conversation on this, but I would love to. How lucky we are that we're awake. I have no idea why I'm awake, why this hypnotist, this propaganda, whatever it is, I don't know why it didn't work on me. And I don't know why it didn't work on so many of my friends. And at the same time, I look at my other friends who I've always thought were reasonable and go, how are you not seeing this? How? I don't know what it is. What kept us awake? I'm thrilled that I'm awake. It's kind of sucks because you see it coming, but
but sometimes, do you know one of the things that I think is part of the antidote? If it's not part of the antidote, I think it's part of what the sweetness that lets the medicine go down or whatever. I think one of the maladies of the West has been we've been sold a pup when it comes to what happiness is.
Yes.
The version of happiness that we've been sold, by the gods of the marketplace is stuff, another car, a better phone, yada, yada, yada. It's a bum rap. That you don't want that. And at the same time, sadness has been given a very bad press. I think part of being awake is appreciating the full texture of reality.
Yes.
It's like sobering up, really, more than wakening up. It's like, it sounds like a good idea to be drunk all the time, except it isn't until you try it.
It's good for a while. It's good for a while, and then it becomes a very big problem.
You need everything. You need everything else, and I think that is what a lot of people are realizing, that the new world that beckons, in a sense, that when the artifice is taken down, is that it is about hard, it is about difficult, it is about sadness and grief some of the time, and a little bit of happiness now and again. Like so much chili powder or so much garlic. Yeah. Part of where we must go is a kind of sobering up as well as a waking up.
Oh, yeah. I'm a recovering alcoholic and AA. I've said this for years. I think the ones who will save the world are the recovering alcoholics, because you see this is alcoholic behavior. You're in denial. That half the world is absolutely in denial, and maybe 3/4, because even some of the people here, that are awake, won't admit America did some really bad things. America's done some really good things, and I want to know both of them. And I'm not here to, self-flagellate over what happened in the past. I'm here just to set it and in history in stone, so we learn from it and we move forward. You have to admit first you have a problem, and so many people won't admit. They'll say, "Oh well, it's the other party." No, it's not. It's what we've become. Edward Bernays is the father of propaganda, and he was Sigmund Freud's nephew. He's the guy who propaganda was really started with until after World War II, when they found one of his books in Goebbels' office. then he said, no, I do advertising. But he said around 1910, the problem with America is this is a country of needs. It has to become a country of wants. That's the opposite of, you tell somebody who wants to get healthy. No, what do you need? What it just your needs. And so we have been sold this load of goods, and we have been changed slowly over time. And now we're in denial. We don't see it, but we keep trying to go back to the polls and get a different outcome. That's like me getting up every day going, I'm not going to drink today. And then the next morning go, geez, you did it again. Well, I'm not going to do it today. You're repeating insanity. So you're powerless over it, that there's something bigger than you. There's some sort of force in the universe or God that is above you. Put it into his hands. But then you need to do some things. You need to change your ways. You need to admit what you've done and get it out. Just get it out. And then move on from that. Then, you have the healing process. And then at the end, you're out there trying to help others get well. That's what every country in the West should be doing right now. We need to first admit we have a problem. Okay, what's the problem? Well, whatever the problem is, we're powerless because we keep trying to fix it and it's not happening. So there's got to be a higher power, and that higher power can just be as simple as the truth. Gods of the copybook headings. No, 2 + 2 = 4. And then just make a moral inventory, because that'll just chew us apart. Here in America, the Civil War and race relations, that's 100, all the statues that they pulled down, of the South, and they really, some of them were really bad racists. Others were not. Robert Lee wasn't a bad guy. He was just defending his homeland as he saw it. But they had statues of Robert E. Lee up. Do you know why those statues were put up all over the South? As reconciliation by the North. So they pulled down all of those, which was for reconciliation, not to honor. And then they pulled those down, and then they pulled everything from the North down, Abraham Lincoln down. We really need to get this out of our system. It's eating us alive.
Do you think another cliche is the one that people keep saying to me all the time at the moment, it's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
Do you think, in a sense, that what we're going through, this very unpleasant process, and let's imagine it is a process, it's a journey and not a destination at the moment. We had to go through it. Do you think we had to go through be confronted with madness like is happening in the US presidential race at the moment? The madness that's happening with, non-existent borders on the south of England at the moment. That the entire communities are being rewritten overnight, and all of the rest of it. It had to get to this point before people would say, we do have a problem.
Yeah, I think
we are alcoholics.
It was inevitable that this would come, because we've lived high in the hog, and we've ate, drank, and be merry, and we're invincible. So it was a great humbling had to happen, and that's the one thing I really take great comfort in. To be alive. I thought of this after my father died. My father died. He was too young for World War I, and he joined right at the end, but he had flat feet, so he couldn't go in to war. He lived in the greatest time period of American history, and he died, right before Obama was elected. And so he hadn't really seen anything really dark except for 9/11. And was he really who he was meant to be? Because he never had his back pushed against the wall. Our backs are being pushed against the wall, which makes me a better citizen. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know what I'm willing to live for. I know what I'm willing to die for. And these are giants the people that we build statues to, and eventually later generations tear them down. We build these statues to people who lived in hard times. You know, that old saying, good times make soft men make hard times make good men, or strong men. We're being seasoned, and it's really, I don't think about our generation. I think it's the next generation that is the hero generation that's going to step up and set things right one way or another. If technology, and along with those at the very top of the ladder, don't grab the pendulum and lock us into a digital cage.
I think my great faith in that area is that I think it will always be possible to turn your back on the digital cage. It'll take an acceptance of hardship and take a lot of walking away from. But it's, these are handcuffs that we place on ourselves. These are man-forged manacles, and we click them on our own wrists. I was reminded recently, Glenn, just that if the whole world got its head shaved on the same day, head lice would become extinct for the human species in that moment, never be seen again. And I sometimes wonder if we all took our smartphones in the same moment and with gay abandon just threw them away, a huge part of this problem would be solved, because we would have to find the other ways of doing all the things that we used to use to do those things before we snapped on these handcuffs. So,
the story of the Tower of Babel. I talked to a rabbi and got the oral tradition, and it's so much richer. Tower of Babel, Nebuchadnezzar is the king, and one of the first things he says is, let's build bricks, and we'll build a tower to reach the sky. Wait, why? I've never heard a politician start with the mundane part. Let's build bricks, and then we'll build a tower to the sky. They always start with, let's build a tower to the sky. Okay, we also have to make some bricks. Bricks, when it's in the scriptures, bricks and stones are very important. Bricks are slaves. Bricks are all the same. So let's make people all the same and interchangeable. So it doesn't matter. One dies, it doesn't matter. Just put the next one in. Stones are individual. Okay. So he says, let's make bricks. He's saying, let's enslave our population and we'll take the glory, and we're going to build a tower to the sky. God, in the Hebrew tradition, there's a couple of different faces of God. There's the angry God, and there's the loving, kind, merciful God. It's the second that actually comes down. We always read this as, God got angry and he came down and destroyed the Tower of Babel. No. It was the merciful that said, if they can do this, they'll do anything. And so how did he solve the problem? He scattered their language. They couldn't understand each other. Our language now, Neil, is ones and zeros. I think a great blessing would be to scatter our language so ones and zeros wouldn't work for a while. It could be very bad, but in the long run, it would probably be very, very good.
The future's analog, Glenn, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
The times when I feel best are when I've just spoken to someone that I trust.
Yeah.
This past hour has made me feel better. And I try not to take that for granted, because I know, and I know why that is. Because it's the oldest, it's thousands of years old. I listen to you, you listen to me, and I feel better.
Yeah.
And admittedly, we're able to, but we'd be having the same conversation in the same room. It's the honest exchange of trusted ideas.
Oh yeah, we would.
I think you're right. I think the generation of my kids coming through, I listen to them talk. Sometimes it's when they're talking to me. Sometimes it's when I overhear them talking to someone, and I hear what they're. And yeah. I have faith that they have seen through it. They were almost born seeing through it for what it is.
They get a really bad rap, and in doing history, which I know you do and love. If you look back at what people said about the greatest generation, the generation that won World War II, their parents said they've never had to plow a field. they've never had to work, by hand. They're so spoiled. They don't know anything. They'll never be able to. That's what they were saying before they started to enlist. Then they enlisted. Look what happened to them. That's exactly the same thing that's being said about this youngest generation. And I think they're wrong. I think they're absolutely wrong. I think this generation is the hero generation. Generation Z, I think, is the hero generation.
Glenn Beck, I'm going to let that be your signing off for this part of a conversation I will hope to continue in the months and years ahead.
Love that. Thank
you.
But
I will take that optimistic thought as my truffle that you have gifted unto me. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Glenn Beck.
You are a gift to a lot of people and to me and my family. Thank you.